structured energy? If dreams, let's say presumably, if they're taking place within the confines of our skull, how could that be possible? If it weren't for the fact that energy can take shape but not take up space. Because in dream landscapes can be as real as physical reality. They can have all the dimension of physical reality. We can be in rooms, we can interact with people, we can be outside, and yet how could all that be possible if it's all taking place inside of our mind if it weren't for the fact that energy can take form but not take up space? Does that make sense? So do you guys have any questions about this so far?
Where are you in the book?
I'm on page 2, section 4. So what beliefs do is once we acquire one, they reverse the cause and effect relationship that we have with the environment. Meaning that instead of the environment acting as a cause, as it's expressing itself. Remember, the environment is just energy. We can really just boil everything that happens in the external environment as simply energy expressing itself in some particular way, whether it's nature or other people. It's just the environment expressing itself in some particular way.
Good morning, guys. Dakota back with another video. Today is August 18th, 2021, and digging into the second part, or just finishing the second part of UJ today. Gonna be finishing like the actual backtesting process, and then gonna be reviewing on Thursday and Friday, and most likely Saturday as well. Reviewing the trades I took and making sure it's all logged properly, and then reviewing the data over the next 3 days. The way that I'm approaching this is each week get through 1 year, and then by the end of the week or by Sunday log it and have all the data actually tracked and reviewed. If this is your first time hopping on the call, my fault. My name's Dakota, and I just track my trading journey on here. Right now I'm going through 5 years of backtesting on dollar yen, and just finishing that up before I work on my next goal. Usually on these calls, what I'll do is go ahead and start on the live charts, trades that I'm actually or pairs that I'm actually trading, seeing how we're doing with that, or things that we're trading within the live chat. If you're not in the chat, the link to the Discord server where you can see all these charts and communicate with everybody for absolutely free is in the description. All right, but let's go ahead and get into this. Get the live charts out the way. Bring that up. Okay. So Aussie dollar price broke this low here, and that's exactly what I was waiting for. That's what I really like to see, and I'm really confident in holding this position now. Now, something that's going to be pretty interesting is how aggressively price breaks this level, or how far price pushes back before putting in a new low, right? So if price like stops right here, let's say it's a negative 27 extension, if it gets to negative 27 extension and then puts in a new low, that's somewhere where I'm like, okay, I need to start closing the position, or yeah, I need to start getting out of this position, because after it breaks up these lows, I like to see an overextended trend pretty much. I see price continue to move impulsively to the downside. that's why ideally, or not ideally, that's why I primarily have my stop loss, not my stop loss, but my take profit to the negative 61.8, because I know, okay, so in this situation, if it gets to negative 27, that means it's unlikely that another correction is going to happen after this, and then a continuation is going to happen. And I'll just the extension levels where I like to see corrections and continuations to continue the major trend are going to be the negative 41 and negative 61.8. That's interesting. I think a post about that, like a blog post about that, would be pretty nice. But yeah, so today, looking to see if price decides to scale back up or continues down. If it scales back up, creates new highs, it's something that I'm looking to get out of pretty soon. All right, but there's no sign of that at all right now. Let's go to EuroJPY. EuroJPY already hit targets, nothing to do here. And in this situation, if that trend line breaks, looking for a buying opportunity. All right, there's no point in trying to figure out, oh, this is the bottom of this trend here and trying to buy it. Just wait for the safety entry here. It looks like we have a descending channel at this area anyway. I already had the screenshot for this, so I can go ahead and delete this. Well, just in case. All right. It's not quite a descending channel. But here, I do like the idea of price breaking the trend line. Depending on how price scales back, will determine basically the next move. But regardless, if another setup does happen here, I'm not looking for it to be aggressive and shoot all the way down to this area. I'm looking for it to trickle down. All right, and possibly form a descending channel. Now with that, wouldn't quite extend to the trend line, in my mind at least right now. We'll draw this all the way out. That's what I'm looking at right now. It looks like it didn't send out. That's a shame. My bot should be sending it out pretty soon. Oh, I was kind of confused at first. I thought this was like the YouTube video. Okay. What else? EuroJPY to be hit. Let's go reply. Update. Should be this the last one here. see, that's right. Yep, that's right. Okay. That's what I'm looking for there. We already did AUD USD. Let's go to gold. Gold. Closed this position yesterday on the 1 hour time frame. We got this close below the trend line, and that was my signal to close that situation. So that's pretty much it there. Looks like we missed the selling opportunity. It's like that was a really nice, like a perfect setup. Yeah, that was absolutely perfect setup. But how far am I looking for this to scale down to? Let's see. So 100% looking for a new downtrend if this low is broken. Since we have this crash here, it leads me to believe if I haven't said this before, after major crashes, what typically happens is obviously like what's happened here. A sustainable movement to the opposite, in the opposite direction, which how I was taught, that's the real move that you want to look for when crashes come. And that's one of the reasons why I paid attention to gold since the crash happened. And with that, I like to see it extend further up, but obviously we have this trend line here. We can't just ignore the things that we have on our chart, so we have to react to the chart. Do not just base off thought. What's the phrase that was said often? There was a phrase said often to me when I was first learning. It was like trade the chart, not trade what you see, not what you think. That's what it is. Okay, impulse down, correction to this level, looking for price to scale down. There's a scaling in opportunity that happened about an hour ago, and looking for that low to be broken. If that low is broken, looking to target this area next. But with that area, have to be aware because price could potentially just continue pushing up with a bullish flag pattern if it does form. There's no confirmation of that forming now, but it still has the possibility to form that. And if we just look at structure here, I already took that screenshot, and then we'll break down the structure after I delete everything. It's a bit redundant, but I feel it's necessary right now. What do we have here? 372. Oops. Right here. 372, 600. Okay, going back to gold, deleting all this. Ooh, don't delete all of it. Just delete that part. Yes. Okay, here's our trend line. Trend line broke, impulse down. Now the impulse broke this low here, but it's not really a major level that price made this push up off of, and price hasn't pushed up that far from that point either. Right, so if we break this down, we have an impulse, correction here, we have an impulse, correction here. After that correction, we got an impulse up on lower time frame where there's an ascending channel here. Price came down, like on the 5 minute, 15 minute, there's a small correction there, but the real safety entry came after the break of this low here, and then we got this correction up and looking for price to scale down, at least for the moment. And right now the target's here, and if price breaks below that level, the next target's going to be at this area, around this area, like let's say in this general area. And that's ultimately where I want to see price go, especially if we're going to break out into a downtrend. I don't see a new setup actually forming today, so it's not too. I do see aggressive movement forming today, but next opportunity should come, let's say within a few weeks, within a week. My bad, I forgot to bring up the chat. Okay. Copy that. Oops. Okay, can I make third? Oops, back up. Jeez, it really has only one. I mean, I'll keep trying it out. I'll keep messing with it, playing with it. If you guys like the replies more than the thread, let me know. So now what's more useful. Okay, so the prime thing for today is just managing AUD USD, looking for price to scale down to targets, or paying attention to how price either scales down or puts in a new low. Right now, there's no sign of price really putting in a new low, but of course, anything can happen at any time. If that forms a descending channel, definitely closing. All right, let's continue. Let's hurry up and get to backtesting. We have Bitcoin. And CAD-JPY to go over. Okay, so price here has an expanding triangle, could push up. Yeah, there's nothing there. We already talked about everything that happened there. GU has pushed down further, which is interesting. The reason this is interesting because here at the top of this range, and let me just put the range here. At the top of this range, an impulse, an expanding triangle came here where I entered for a sell, and then the descending channel came at a level that I was looking to looking to close at, or looking for some type of resistance at that level there, which the descending channel tells me to close my selling positions. Now price continues scaling down. It offered a new opportunity here, but I saw further resistance and I saw a bullish pattern here and like areas to actually enter for a buy. But this is a very, very strong sell right here. And something that I've been testing on GU for the past, I think it's been, yeah, for the past 3 months now, is just trading it within ranges. And let's say price comes down, makes a top, makes a low, creates this range, comes up to the top of this range, and then I'm looking for price to scale back down, ideally or generically looking for the scale down all the way down to the bottom of the zone or the bottom of the range, But there are areas within this where there are resistance or support levels to look to close the position at. And about the 78.6, 88.6, if price is going to scale all the way back down to the bottom of the range, those are areas where where I'd look for where I'd look for take profits, at least extended take profits. But yeah, I'm gonna study that trade and see if I could have done anything better. Well, I did everything that I was supposed to do. Let's go to something I want to look at: dollar Swiss and dollar yen. Dollar Swiss, this buying opportunity has been pretty elusive. Nothing for me to talk about here. We'll move on from that. Okay, dollar yen. So ideally looking for a sell here, but there's no real confirmation for the sell yet. And price is attempting to break the trend line. So we'll see how it reacts here. If we get an impulsive move up, look for a correction and I'd buy it to just to this area, not any further. Now US 30. US 30 did not give buys off this level. It did reach that high though. It came back down to this area. We have a buying opportunity right now actually, and we have a new range. Okay, after this Bitcoin, and then I'm gonna be done and like focus in on my my backtesting. We're gonna go. Alright, I'm gonna go to lower time frame. Okay, this setup actually looks pretty clean. Yes, it's perfect. Or it's a great setup. We can put stops below this low or this low. What's the R look like? 410. Man, that looks tasty. We have some important stuff today. Yeah, we do have some important stuff today. All right, we'll go for the 4. I should have US 30 posted in here at least one time. Or I may not be. Yeah, I do. Awesome. Let's create the third. Uploading. Update. Okay. And that should be no Bitcoin finally. Okay, so it looks like Bitcoin scaled down even further, which in this situation is pretty nice. Still like the buys here. I'm actually liking it more and more. like I said, I'm looking for price to scale all the way up to that level. So, like, just imagine with me. We have 5 minutes till I get dig into it. Imagine with me. Imagine if this plays out perfectly. Imagine if this trend goes like this. Which one is the one where it's connected? Where are the connected lines? Is this one? No, it is not. That is not it. I'm gonna find it. I'm not gonna move on until I find it. Trend angle, horizontal, full top, just sheesh. That is not it either. There it is, path. Okay. All right, let's try that again. All right, backing up to what I said. Imagine with me if this trend plays out perfectly like this. Wouldn't that be amazing? That would be amazing, right? So if that happened, this would be like a perfect trend pretty much, with so many buying opportunities. Well, with plenty of buying opportunities. I'm not saying every single one of those buying opportunities are going to happen, but I like this vision for the future of Bitcoin. All right, scaling up to that level, about 66,000. Really nice opportunity there. No, almost clicked the wrong one. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and close out this stuff. Again, Bitcoin. Like I said, I really like this opportunity on Bitcoin. The reversal has already happened. All right. Where do we catch it here? We caught a reversal somewhere down here. And price continued to scale up, and it broke the highs. So we're looking for that. I'm looking for that uptrend right now. That's everything. All right, so let's go back to AUD USD. We'll keep that on screen in the background, and I'm going to start backtesting.
Way, acting as a force on our senses. Once we acquire a belief, the cause and effect relationship reverses, meaning that now what happens is that energy gets interpreted in a way that's consistent with what we believe. It gets shaped. In other words, the force on the inside, the structured energy on the inside, acts as a direct force on our eyes so that we perceive information in a way that's consistent with what we believe. It acts as a direct force on our ears so that we hear information in a way that's consistent with what we believe. on our sense of touch, taste, and smell. So that when I touch this, I know that it's a marker. I can feel it. That's the concept, this structured energy in my mind of a marker so that I recognize what this is. And as a result, they also create our expectations. And remember what I said, what is an expectation?
Belief projected into the future.
Yeah, a belief projected into the future. Into some future moment. Whether it's a second from now, a minute from now, a day, or whatever. It's that we're expecting the environment to show up in a way that's consistent with what we believe.
Just so I understand this concept of the environment having, once you have a belief, the cause and effect relationship is reversed. If I don't have a belief and you utter a phrase to me, if I have they're just simply words. Once you attach a belief to that, though, I can interpret that in a multitude of ways, as opposed to just simply a phrase that's being projected at me. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at. If you're saying like a first-time experience,
Yes.
okay, like a first-time experience, you'll just take in a way that directly relates to the way the environment was expressing itself.
Right.
So there'll be a direct one-to-one relationship.
Right.
But now there may not be a direct one-to-one relationship if there's any similarities to anything else that you might believe. So there could be part of it that could be brand new and other parts of it that you might interpret in ways that are consistent with something that's already inside of you. So that you'll start making connections immediately. Because that's what our minds do. They automatically, remember, our minds are wired to associate, so we'll make these connections. If there's any similarities at all, our minds will start making connections to what we already know. And the reason why is because it's uncomfortable to be in a state of confusion. See, information that we can't make any distinctions about creates a state of confusion until we've learned to make certain distinctions. What does it mean? What does it mean? Now, when we know what it means, we're not in a state of confusion anymore. That doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that what we've determined it means is functional or that's going to help us in some way. But we'll get into that in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, what do beliefs do? They manage our perception and interpretation of environmental information. They create our expectations. They determine what actions we take or how we decide to express ourselves. Now think about this. Behavior expressing ourselves requires energy. I am going to express myself and you are going to express yourself in a way that's consistent. Your outward behavior will be consistent with the energy that's inside of you. It's that simple. It can't be really any other way. And the energy is inside of you. How that energy is structured are what you believe, or is what you believe. Now, you may not know what you believe, meaning that you may not have taken the time to say that or to extrapolate your behavior and say that, for me to behave this way, this is what I need to believe. Or for me to behave in this circumstance, this is what I have to believe. But that's not a very hard thing to do. In other words, in the consulting, coaching business that I've had for many years, that's exactly what I did do. You could just describe to me what you did, under what circumstances you did it, and it got to be very easy to extrapolate it into this is what you would have to believe to behave this way under these circumstances. It takes energy to express yourself, and how we express ourselves is going to be consistent with the energy inside of us. To the intensity to which we express ourselves will be consistent with the energy that's inside of us. And in terms of our expression of our behavior, it will be a function of basically two broad categories. Our beliefs in relationship to these kind of genetically encoded behavior characteristics that we came here with, and how they interact together. Is this making sense to everybody? Okay. So they determine what action we take and how we decide to express ourselves, and also how we feel about the outcome. So if I'm interacting with the environment in some way, you can say that I have a particular reason or purpose for doing so. Meaning that our desires, our needs, our wants, our goals, our aspirations, they're generated from within and usually fulfilled out there. Are you with me on this? No? Okay, what you want, what you desire, what you feel, believe you need, or what your goals are, all come from within here, right? Okay? From, let's say, a number of different factors that go into formulating what your goals are or what your desires might be. Your desires could also be, a combination of your let's say, genetically encoded behavior characteristics, those kind of filters that we're born with, in combination with what we've learned to believe. Also, I'm going to add another dimension to this, and that's our inherent capability of being creative. And creativity comes from, instead of going where it comes from at this point, let's just say that creativity is bringing forth something that didn't previously exist. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't exist somewhere else in the world, or someone else's life, or in someone else's mind, but we do have this inherent capability of being creative, in that our thoughts are not bounded by what we've learned to believe. In other words, we can think in any direction we choose. And therefore, as a result, we can also be inspired by certain thoughts and feelings that cause us to think of something outside of something we've learned to believe, and therefore generate a desire based on that. All I'm saying is that whatever it is, desire, want, need, goal, aspiration, generate from within and usually fulfilled out there. Meaning, I'm going to take a particular set of steps to fulfill my needs. I'm going to have to interact with the external environment to fulfill my needs. I'm going to have to interact with the external environment to fulfill my desires. Your desire is to be, let's say, a consistently successful trader, to accumulate wealth as a trader. That's a desire generated from within. What do you have to do? You have to interact with the market to fulfill that desire, correct? And as a result, you are going to take a particular set of steps to do that, correct? Those set of steps are going to be based on what? What steps you decide to take are going to be based on what? A function of what? No, come on. The set of steps you take in any given set of circumstances to fulfill your needs, wants, goals, desires, whatever your agenda is going to be based on what?
Beliefs.
Your beliefs. What you think works, right? What you think works. What you have learned to believe works. And then how you feel about the outcome of whatever steps you took in interacting with these external forces is also a function of what? What I've learned to believe. So probably, when you look at sports, the dynamics of successful athletes. You've got athletes who, you probably all have read about things about, certain athletes have certain styles of self-talk, or, their internal dialogue that goes on between them, okay? So when one athlete makes a mistake, they might criticize themselves and call themselves names, and other athletes, just shake it completely off and think very positive thoughts and get themselves refocused on what they need to do. Those are based on beliefs that they have about what they think works. Or whether they even think it works or not doesn't even make any difference, because a lot of times, certainly the self-criticizing beliefs were usually installed by other people anyway, and they won't really even have a choice in that respect unless they've gone ahead and kind of cleared that stuff out, worked on clearing it out. They won't have a choice about what they're hearing in their mind anyway. But the point is, it is based on how they feel about the results of any particular action they take will be based on what they've learned to believe. So you can, regardless, see, so what I'm saying is that regardless of what outcome you get, you can learn, you can actually acquire a set of beliefs that allow you to think positively of yourself regardless of the outcome. It's just a matter of what you've learned to believe. What you've learned to believe about the nature of mistakes. Okay? So, beliefs manage the way we interpret environmental information. They create our expectations, determine what actions we take, and how we feel about the results. You guys with me on all this? I'm going to give you some examples to really illustrate it. The best example I can give, two of the best examples I can give you, one's in the disciplined trader, one's in trading in the zone. But I really like the one where I was writing the disciplined trader. This would have been sometime around 1986 or 1987, and I'd been writing all Saturday afternoon, and I took a break and turned on the TV, and there was some locally produced TV program in Chicago called Gotcha Chicago. And what the news station did was hire people to play practical jokes on some local Chicago celebrities. But in one case, what they did is they hired a guy to go out on Michigan Avenue, and they stuffed his pockets full of cash, and they gave him a sign that said, "Free money today only." That's what the sign said, "Free money today only." And his instructions were to only give money to anyone who asked for it. All right? That was the instruction. Give money to those who ask. He went out on Michigan Avenue. Okay, free money. Michigan Avenue is very busy. And how many people do you think asked for the money? You read the book, I know. For those who didn't read it.
Streetcar, I guess.
Yeah, only one person approached him and asked him for a quarter for a bus transfer. Now, remember I said a moment ago that you can tell what people believe based on how they behave in a particular set of circumstances? We could presume, let's make some assumptions. We can make assumptions, first of all, that people could read the sign that said free money today only. But yet nobody would ask. As a matter of fact, he became really frustrated because he didn't really understand what was going on. He thought that he'd be mocked. And, you know, and really under probably under circumstances in which people did believe that money was free, he was probably putting himself in danger. Because people can really get, you know, people can act pretty weird when it comes to free money.
Really?
You know, yeah. So he got real frustrated with this whole thing, and he even went up to somebody, some guy I assume was just, you know, he had a suit on and carrying a briefcase, and he walked up to the guy and said, "Would you like some money?" And the guy said, "Not today." And they screamed out, "Well, how many days has this happened?" And the guy just walked around him. Another thing I noticed was that people were going out of their way to take a wide path around this guy. Let's break down the dynamics. What's going on?
People don't believe it exists.
Yeah.
It's like the
Who
same.
would give away free money?
Yeah. Well, can we assume that the people that walked around him? First of all, what assumptions can we make about money? What does money mean?
Doesn't grow on trees.
You have to work hard, doesn't grow on trees.
Work hard, doesn't grow on trees. Can money have a pretty can money have a great deal of significance in most people's lives?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a big attachment, emotional attachment for most people.
So what can we assume? Now, in this case, you say we say that the environment was expressing itself in a way, in other words, what it was representing, the sign represented the truth. The sign represented the truth. The money was free. And yet, this is what I was talking about how opportunities and certain distinctions about the nature of the environment can be invisible. The people that made the decision to walk around this person, to actually take a wide path, what would that tell you about what they believed in that moment based on how their beliefs were causing them to interpret that information?
That's crazy.
They believe there's no such thing as free money. There has to be a catch.
That's right. Probably no such thing as free money, and the guy could be dangerous and crazy. In other words, if the money were really free, he would already be mobbed. Otherwise, this guy must really be a nutcase, and therefore, I should take a wide path around him to avoid the possibility of coming into contact with him. Now let's look again, let's break down the dynamics. I don't believe that free money exists, okay? That's basically what they're saying. In other words, the environment can express itself in an infinite combination of ways. Remember that? And even though free money is unlikely, free money is rare, in this case, it was real. It existed. And other than one person, nobody could perceive the existence of what was real from the environment's perspective. So if I'm operating out of a belief that free money doesn't exist, how will that act on my perception of information? Because what I have is a contradiction. I have a contradiction. I'm operating out of a belief that free money doesn't exist, and yet I see a sign that says free money. That is now I'm dealing with information that's in complete conflict with my belief that free money doesn't exist. How do I reconcile the conflict?
Change your belief about free money.
No, not in this case. No. People aren't going to on the street and start changing their beliefs. That's for sure. How are they going to reconcile the conflict?
Interact with them? Or
Interact? No.
Go and take it.
You already said it. You already decided the guy's crazy.
Oh, they listen to their own beliefs. They
Yeah.
don't change.
You guys are okay. I'm sorry. I'm not making myself clear. I've got a belief that says free money doesn't exist. That's my reality. I've got information in the environment that's in direct conflict with what I think is real. How do I reconcile this conflict between what's in front of my face? I can read the sign.
You gotta ignore one of them.
Changing energy?
Yeah, I've got to rationalize it away in some way.
In order to keep your belief.
Not to keep nothing's going to happen to my belief. Believe me, that ain't going to happen. My belief isn't going to change at all. I mean, people's beliefs just don't change unless something very dramatic happens or they consciously do something about it. But I still have to because I still have to reconcile the conflict.
It needs to be
You
justified.
ignore it.
But what?
You ignore it.
I can ignore it, or I can again, like Jeff said, I can decide that the guy must be crazy because he believes free money's big. I just can't walk away from free money.
What would happen if they decided to just take a chance that one day and go against their belief and really see if there was?
That's right. We're going to get into that in a second, Sean. Okay, but that's But right now we're just dealing with the people who saw the sign, could read it. What do they do about it? What do we do about it? See, these shouldn't be hard questions to answer, guys. Because this is something we do every day in our lives. Every time we confront conflicting information from our friends, our spouses, or whatever, we find some way to either argue our way out of it, right? Or if we can't do that, what do we say? Well, you're crazy.
Rationalize it away
Until you're not in a state of conflict anymore. I've got a belief that says free money doesn't exist. I've got conflicting information I'm being confronted with. I didn't ask for this conflict, meaning that I stepped into it inadvertently. I'm walking along the street, and all of a sudden I see this sign that says free money today only. It completely violates what I believe to be true. What do I do about it? I say, well, it's not true. And as a result, this guy must be crazy. So as a result, my belief that free money doesn't exist, manage my perception of the information in a way that's consistent with what I believe. My expectation was one of possible threat or danger. The guy I decided was crazy. My behavior is I take a wide path around this particular person to avoid encountering him. And how do I feel about the results?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I did good, didn't I? Okay? I avoided a possible conflict with a crazy person.
The belief ruled all of your actions.
That's right, the belief ruled the whole process. It created an experience that was completely, let's say, out of touch with the reality of the situation. From the environment's perspective, the belief that we operated out of in that moment as an example, or the typical person that saw the sign, the way the belief, impacted their perception, their expectation, the behavior, and how they felt about the results, created a reality for them, meaning an experience, a reality for them that was 100% or 180 degrees away from what was available from the environment's perspective. And interestingly enough, if you gathered those people together and asked them what they experienced, they would tell you what they experienced based on what they knew. Because their experience reinforced their belief. And if encountering the same situation again, what would they do?
Same thing.
The same thing. Why? Because they didn't learn anything. Nothing changed. And so they'll experience, if they encountered someone with a sign again, they would experience the exact same thing.
Even if they had feedback?
No, not saying if they had feedback. No, we're not talking about feedback. We're just talking about I'm just talking about the impact that beliefs have on what we experience in relationship to what's available. The belief rules, exactly right. So now you can, just as a little side note, now you can start to see when I say that if I believe that I don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money, or I believe that anything can happen, or I believe that it only takes one trader somewhere in the world to negate the positive outcome of my edge, am I not going to put a stop in the market? Am I not going to predefine my risk? Can I possibly do that if I have those beliefs? I couldn't do it. I couldn't make that mistake. I couldn't make that error. Or that every moment is unique, as long as I understand the real implications of the word unique. This moment is not like any other, even though it may seem like it. See, this moment is unique won't let me think that I know what's going to happen. It won't let me think that. And since I know I don't have to know, then it doesn't become an issue, does it? Think about that. This moment is unique, won't let me think that I know, and because I believe that I don't need to know, it's not even an issue. So that I stay in the now moment, meaning what's the market telling me about its potential to move based on the pattern that exists right now. I just wanted to do a little reinforcing. Is that all right, guys? That's good, right? Okay, so again, if all these people, we gather together all these people to get their feedback in terms of what they got out of this, they would relate the experience in a way that was completely consistent with what they experienced, because the experience itself reinforced the belief, creating a closed loop. The belief acts as a force on our perception of information in a way that's consistent with the belief. What we expect is consistent with the belief. What we do and what we do is going to be consistent with the belief. Therefore, the experience that we have will be consistent with the belief, and therefore everything gets reinforced, and nothing that might exist outside that circle even has the possibility of entering into to break the circle. But like Sean said, let's say for an example you've got somebody that just takes a kind of what if attitude. What if? What if it's real? Or what have I got to lose to find out? And so this person just goes up and says, okay, give me $10. And the guy reaches in his pocket, pulls out a $10 bill, and hands the $10 bill to the person. Now what? Now we look at the dynamics. Now what? What?
I should ask for more.
Well, well, I was going to get to that. Right. Wish you asked for more. Right. Typical trader's mentality is ask for more. However, okay, let's look at the dynamics here. What happens?
You get free money sometimes.
Okay, you get free money sometimes. What happens to this belief about free money not existing?
As an addendum to it.
Weakens.
Yeah, we pulled some energy out of it, didn't we? In fact, when you look at the nature of this particular concept and how definitive it is, we can say that what we've really done is pretty much neutralize it. Because you can't say it doesn't exist, because it does exist. It's not black and white. It might not be common, but it does exist. And so what happened? In essence, we used the vernacular, he changed the belief. We really didn't change the belief. We've got two contradictory beliefs inside of his mental system. One that says free money doesn't exist, one that says it does. Which has more energy? Probably the one that says that it does, because under similar circumstances, is he going to hesitate asking for the money? Not at all. He'd be the first one in line, right? Oh, I remember that. Okay? Yeah, okay. I know what's happening. I know what's happening here. And interestingly enough, when you have this kind of experience where you have, let's say, been pleasantly surprised with an experience that contradicts a limitation, you might say, because this is a limitation, and pleasantly surprised, what are you going to do? You're going to want to share that with everybody, right? Not everybody, but most everybody. You're going to go home, you're going to go back to the office, you're going to be maybe even jumping up and down, and virtually the same three words will roll out of everyone's mouth when you confront, let's say, whoever it is that you want to tell. What are you going to say? How are you going to start your story? What three words are you going to use to start your story?
You won't believe it.
Yeah.
You won't believe. Right. You won't believe. You're saying, hey, you won't believe this, and you know what? You're right. They won't. You want them to believe it. Well, you're right. They probably won't. And why won't they?
Goes against their belief.
It goes against their belief that free money exists. And so they will interpret your story as being a fabric of your imagination, or just maybe something you're trying to pull over on them. Whatever way they might interpret why you're saying what you're saying, they will find a way to rationalize it away so that they're not in a state of conflict. By the fact that you're confronting them with information that completely contradicts what they believe to be true. guys with me on this? And interestingly enough, let's look at the state of mind. This is the critical factor here. State of mind. The relative degree of positiveness or negative energy that's rolling through our brain and body. Okay? Because essentially, or let's say eventually, by tomorrow afternoon, what we're going to learn about the nature of consistency is that it's really a function of your state of mind. Not, specifically not a function, or how much money you accumulate as a trader is not a function of how much time you expose yourself to the opportunities. Not at all. It is a function of your state of mind. That's a big one. That's a tough one to learn.
You say that again?
That the amount of money you accumulate as a trader is not a function of how much time you spend exposing yourself to the opportunities, as most people think that it is. Now, the more opportunities I expose myself to, it would make sense that the more money I should be able to accumulate. And I'm saying that is expressly not the case. The amount of money you accumulate is a function of your state of mind while you're trading. If you're in the most conducive state of mind to be making money, you will make and keep more money whether you traded 5 minutes a day or 5 hours a day, if you can stay focused in the most appropriate state of mind. And so the whole idea is that if you're not in the most appropriate state of mind, then again, don't trade. It's like putting money in the bank. And that's basically what I meant yesterday. But let's look at the state of mind. What time is it, by the way?
10:40.
Okay, but let's look at the state of mind that each one of these beliefs produce. The people who believe that free money didn't exist and walked around that particular person, you could say that there are varying degrees of discomfort based on how crazy they thought the person was. The crazier they thought the person was, the greater the degree of discomfort. So you could take someone who really thought the person was crazy, and instead of just taking 5 or 6 feet, there's a one-to-one correlation. You can even measure it, basically. How far away they would go out of their way and alter their path would be in direct relationship to the degree of discomfort, meaning the degree of negative energy that was in their belief about how crazy this person was. To the point where somebody might even just cross the street just to stay on the other side of the street. And so their experience of the situation was, let's say, close to, if this was terror, okay, and this is confidence, you could say that someone could actually create for themselves an experience of fear or terror. When that's not what existed at all. Go ahead, Michelle.
Mark, there's a little problem with the microphone, so can you just take it?
Now, what we were talking about before we went on break, was that we were talking about various states of mind and how whatever beliefs we're operating out of in any given moment will basically control or determine what state of mind that we're in. In other words, the energy of the belief that we're operating out of will correspond with the state of mind that we experience. So, for an example, the people that decided, based on their belief that free money didn't exist, that the person had to be crazy. And what does it mean to interact with a crazy person? Well, who knows? but if anything, at the very least, it could be threatening or dangerous. And therefore, once it was decided, based on that kind of thought pattern that I just went through, that it was threatening or dangerous, they experienced a state of mind that corresponded exactly with what they believed. Because when you think about it, just for a moment, what we're experiencing in any given moment is a state of mind. Are we not? That's what's real. What's real in any given moment is our state of mind. What we're going to find is that the beliefs that may have tapped us into any particular state of mind may not have any relevancy whatsoever to the actual conditions that existed in that moment from the environment's perspective. So you've got one person or a number of people who thought he was crazy, and therefore their experiences of the situation were, if this is neutral right here, we're on this side, on the negative side, varying degrees of a negative state of mind. And as a result of feeling that negative energy, they reinforce their belief. Whereas the guy who operated out of the what if question and decided to try the experience out and ended up with $10, what did he experience? Excitement. And excited to the point where he wanted to share that excitement with everyone he knew. And therefore would go and, people that he knew that he'd encounter, he'd say, hey, you won't believe what happened to me today. But as Louis pointed out, the moment that he encountered somebody who said, well, if that's the case, then why didn't he ask for $100? What's going to happen? Or if it occurs to him that he should have asked for $100, what's going to happen to his state of mind? Change from what? Positive, from excitement to regret. Okay? Instantaneously. Because of what? Because of a belief about missing opportunities. Right? What if you didn't have a belief about missing opportunities? Meaning, what if you didn't believe that missed opportunities didn't exist? How could I even say that, right? Is it possible to even believe that missed opportunities don't exist? Sure it is. Because if you're capable of taking advantage of whatever it is you perceived was available in any given moment, you'd have done it. And by the mere fact that you didn't or didn't take advantage of it to the extent that you would have liked to only indicates something that you need to learn. So it was an opportunity to find out what you need to learn. So you really didn't miss anything. You gained something. Now, if you really believe that, would you flip into a state of regret? No, you wouldn't. And you would stay positively focused, right?
And then ready for the next opportunity.
And ready for the next opportunity. And ready to do better.
What was that song that you should
Get it on the tape. And excited to the point where he wanted to share that excitement with everyone he knew. And therefore would go and, people that he knew that he'd encounter, he'd say, hey, you won't believe what happened to me today. But as Louis pointed out, the moment that he encountered somebody who said, well, if that's the case, then why didn't he ask for $100? What's going to happen? Or if it occurs to him that he should have asked for $100, what's going to happen to his state of mind? Change from what? Positive, from excitement to regret. Okay? Instantaneously. Because of what? Because of a belief about missing opportunities. Right?
Right. Right.
What if you didn't have a belief about missing opportunities? Meaning, what if you didn't believe that missed opportunities didn't exist? How could I even say that, right? Is it possible to even believe that missed opportunities don't exist? Sure it is. Because if you were capable of taking advantage of whatever it is you perceived was available at any given moment, you'd have done it. And by the mere fact that you didn't or didn't take advantage of it to the extent that you would have liked to only indicates something that you need to learn. So it was an opportunity to find out what you need to learn. So you really didn't miss anything. You gained something. Now, if you really believe that, would you flip into a state of regret? No, you wouldn't. And you would stay positively focused, right?
And then ready for the next.
And ready for the next opportunity. And ready to do better.
What was that thought that you should
Get it on the tape. Try to write it down right now. Go ahead. Try to write it down as best you can. I'll repeat it for you later, but I want you to try to write it down. Just start out with, what if missed opportunities didn't exist? Start out with that and see what you come up with. So does everyone understand the dynamics involved? Are we getting there about the nature of beliefs? And see, when you think about it, I'll go back to the very beginning when we started this. This whole idea, free money exists, free money doesn't exist, it's an abstract concept when you think about it. It's these letters, these symbols that form into a word, that form into a concept that in essence become a reality. Whether it corresponds with what's actually available from the environment's perspective may or may not correspond at all is what I'm saying. But the point is that just that concept, this energized structure inside of our minds caused them to experience something that was completely 180 degrees contradictory or 180 degrees different than what was available. And yet we would walk away from the experience thoroughly believing that what we experienced was the true reality of the situation, and would argue that, and would defend it.
Religious fundamentalists are right.
Exactly. But it doesn't really, you don't have to be a religious fundamentalist, Sean. Every belief works that way just about, unless they're open-ended beliefs. So I'm going to give you another example that ties all this together by also bringing how fear causes us to narrow our focus of attention on the object of our fear. And this one's in the trading in the zone. The example I like to use is a first-time experience that a child has with a dog. Now, when you think about this, I want you to think about it in terms of dogs have a range of expression. I'm just going to do it down here. Can you guys see this on the video? Dogs have a range of expression. It is not infinite, is it? Do dogs have an infinite range of expression, ways they can express themselves? No, it's finite. So we can say that this line could represent all the different characteristics and properties of the way dogs can behave. And we can even divide this up into positively charged ways and negatively charged ways. Meaning dogs can be friendly, dogs can be loyal, dogs can be loving, dogs can be playful, but dogs can be mean and nasty and dangerous, right? All these things from the positive end to the negative end and back again. This line now represents all the distinctions that we can make about the nature and characteristics of dogs. Before a child has this first-time experience with a dog, dogs don't exist. Are you with me? How could they exist? You can't know about something you haven't experienced yet. Okay? So in the child's mind, let's say this is a little toddler. In the child's mind, dogs don't exist, and the child now has a first-time encounter with a dog. In other words, remember, the environment can express itself in an infinite combination of ways. The child encounters a dog for the first time. It just so happens this particular dog is having a bad day, mean and nasty, whatever, but the child gets bit and gets bit pretty bad. It turned out to be a really bad situation. Now, does the child have to understand the nature of language to be afraid of dogs? In other words, does he have to associate this particular experience or memory that he has now with words? He will eventually, even if when he has this experience, if he hasn't learned to talk, eventually he will relate this experience to certain words that describe the reality or the nature of dogs based on his internal experience of them. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. What I want to get to, however, is that he has a first-time experience, and that first-time experience is transformed into a negatively charged energy, or transformed into a negatively charged memory, negatively charged memory. So that the next time he encounters a dog in the environment, what is going to happen and why? Yes, he's going to associate based on the similarities of the second dog. His mind will automatically associate the second dog with the first dog, making them identical, correct? And as a result, what will his state of mind be? Fear or terror, right? Now, it turns out, let's say from the environment's perspective, this second dog that he encounters could be the friendliest dog in the world, could just be wanting to play with the child. From the dog's perspective, dog sees child, dog thinks play, and dog approaches child wanting to play. Child thinks he's being attacked. Dog never touches the child. From the child's perspective, was he attacked? Yes. He was attacked. You know why? Because it tapped him into all of the energy of that first experience, and he felt it as if it were happening right then and there in that moment. And so what we have from the child's perspective is a first-time experience that from the environment's perspective was real, a second-time experience that from the environment's perspective was not real, but that all the energy still got associated in his mind in a way where he reinforced the first-time experience so that the energy of this memory grew. So if he had, let's say, this much negative energy, now it's this much negative energy. And the next encounter with the dog, regardless of how friendly it is going to experience the same thing, and instead of this much energy, there's going to be this much energy.
Even if it isn't a negative experience with the dog?
It will be a negative experience every time.
Anyway.
That's what I'm saying. You see, every experience will be negative because he's going to associate every dog with his memory so that the memories get reinforced. Psychologists would call this like a projection. I call it like an instantaneous association, meaning that what's really happening is that the energy in his mind is acting as a force on his senses to see a threatening or terrorizing circumstance or situation every time he comes into contact with a dog. What he's feeling inside is real. In other words, his state of mind is absolutely 100% real. How he got into that state of mind is not. In other words, how he got into that state of mind is basically dysfunctional. Because what happens is that he is making an instantaneous, like I said, psychologists would call this projection. He's projecting his internal energy onto that dog. Let's say this is the 5th or 6th encounter of him seeing a dog, and they've all been friendly except for the first one. And what happens is that his own terror gets reflected back to him. And how do I want to say this? I want to say this differently. What's that? What?
In his mind, all dogs.
Yes, and we haven't talked about the actual concept yet. I'm just getting, going from the memory itself. But what happens is that because the dog is in his field of awareness, and because he's experiencing the terror, he will project that terror onto that dog, saying that it's that dog that's making me feel this way. You guys with me on that? It is that dog that's making me feel this way. That particular dog isn't doing anything to him. Nothing at all. There was no possible way you could convince the child otherwise. As a matter of fact, trying to convince the child otherwise only does what? Enforces it and really frustrates them, right? Because what you're really doing is in essence, you would be, from the child's perspective, not honoring his fear, not supporting it, and trying to invalidate it in a way where he just wouldn't be able to even remotely understand. Because the state of mind he's in is real. That is 100% reality. You can't deny our state of mind. You can't deny your state of mind. You can't deny someone else's state of mind. It doesn't make any difference what you might say. If we're confident, we're confident. If we're fearful, we're fearful. That is the truth. How we got into that state of mind, meaning whatever belief or memory that flipped us into that state of mind, may not be the truth at all relative to what the environment was offering.
After the first incident that created that.
Right, after the first incident, right? Yes, exactly. Because what happens is that as this experience gets reinforced, as this memory gets reinforced, his senses become particularly attuned to picking up the sights and sounds of dogs that otherwise wouldn't even exist in his field of awareness. So you can imagine a situation where he walks on his front porch, there's kids in the park playing across the street, his friends, that's an opportunity. He desires to be with his friends and to play with them and to have fun, right? He walks out on the porch and off in the distance he hears a dog bark. What's he going to do?
React.
And go back in the house, right? This is something that he would have been oblivious to if it weren't for the fact that fear causes us to narrow our focus of attention onto the object of our fear so that we create the very experience we're trying to avoid. So in this case, he's trying to avoid dogs because he believes that they're inherently dangerous. And what does he do? He created an experience of fear where it otherwise wouldn't even exist. The dog could have been 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. It wouldn't have made any difference. And yet, from his perspective, this is a real experience. A valid and real experience. So what he ends up, when he gets to the point, when he gets old enough, where he's taught these words and concepts, he will, let's put it this way. Now let me do it this way. He could very well create a belief eventually he will learn to associate those memories, those particular memories, with these particular words. and create a concept about the nature of the way the world works in relationship to dogs. This is called a belief, and it is structured energy. It is an abstract concept by itself, but once all the energy from his memories, this is really important. Now, you need to get this. This is critically important. Once all the energy from his memories get attached to these words become reality. That will cause him to experience the world in a way that's completely consistent with these words. So that every time a dog comes into his field of awareness, he will experience the energy, the extreme negative energy that's in this concept. That's the state of mind he will flip into instantaneously. Now, in relationship to the environment, or what we know about the nature of dogs and the ways that they can express, all the different ways that they can express themselves, we know that this particular characteristic exists over here on the extreme end. And every other characteristic about the nature of dogs, this child is oblivious to. Remember, friendly, loving, loyal, playful. Remember those characteristics? Does this child have any capacity to perceive these characteristics? No, none, no capacity whatsoever. They do not exist in this child's mind anyway. In the environment they exist, in the child's mind they do not. In fact, it's impossible. Wouldn't even be considered. Can you think of a situation in which well, let's put it this way. How does a child, does he live his whole life like this? What?
It's possible.
He may. It's possible, right? It's very possible. What's likely to happen at some point? It gets changed? I don't know about how likely it is. There's something else that could happen that would be more likely. What?
Gets tempered.
Gets tempered, yes, okay.
Maybe he has a positive experience with your dog.
Maybe he has a positive experience. Depends on what you mean by that, because there are degrees of positive experience, because his experience is his ability to experience anything positive will be extremely limited. And why? Because remember, every time a dog comes into his field of awareness, it instantaneously taps him into this belief. Right? So how is he going to get out of this closed loop? He doesn't even know it's a closed loop. Remember that. He doesn't know it's a closed loop. You can tell him that all dogs aren't dangerous, and he will not believe you. And this is another area where parents get really frustrated with their kids when their kids are exhibiting what they consider to be an irrational fear, and they get mad when their kids don't respond to the fact that they tell them, well, you shouldn't be afraid. All they do is get madder. Go ahead.
Would it be likely if a child ran into a dog who wasn't dangerous, they would do something to invoke the dog to become dangerous to prove they were right?
Well, unlikely, only because they wouldn't be able to interact with the dog. They wouldn't even be able to interact with it.
Take it out of a child in an adult situation, which is
Maybe if the adult felt powerful enough.
well, not even a dog.
You know.
If you have a certain belief that causes you harm,
Oh yeah.
and you
Oh
find an
sure.
environment that doesn't, well, you
Absolutely.
sort of back to self-sabotage
Sure.
to prove that you're right.
Exactly. Right. Absolutely. So, can we think of any circumstances in which, first of all, as John said, the belief might get tempered a bit? Tempered meaning, I only mean by tempered, he might be able to perceive other possibilities. Because we're getting to a real critical concept here that you guys need to have for your trading. Remember, he's going to avoid dogs at all costs. There's no other possibilities that exist for him other than terror.
You see somebody else with a dog having a different experience?
Yes, okay. He might see somebody else. In other words, let's say he's in a circumstance where he's with his parents, he feels relatively safe and comfortable, and just without any without any foreknowledge, encounters an experience or encounters a situation, put it that way, where, and I'm going to be specific, where kids his own age are playing with dogs and obviously having a great deal of fun. Maybe he walks around a corner or something, and all of a sudden he's confronted with this scene where kids, maybe 2 or 3 other kids, maybe kids that he even knows, his own age, that are playing with dogs and having a great time. Now, the dynamics. Based on what we've learned so far, what happens? First thing that happens.
Maybe a little energy gets taken out of that belief.
That's not the first thing that happens. What? That's still not the first thing that happens. You guys really, now just think of your, no.
He doubts his belief at that point.
Well, that's still not the first thing that
He wants
happens.
to go home? He wants to go.
Come on. Yeah, well, come on, just don't think of this kid. Think of your own experiences. What happens when you encounter information unanticipated from the environment that completely contradicts what you believe to be true? What happens? Confusion. That is a natural state. Confusion is a natural state. That's what happens when we encounter information that conflicts what we believe to be true. We are confused. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Now, at some point, the confusion will kind of wear away a bit as he contemplates what it is that he experienced. And he, at that point, realizes that other possibilities exist beyond the limitations of his belief. Now, a bunch of things can happen. He can, 1, decide that he wants to be like the other kids, meaning he wants to be able to play with dogs. He perceives the possibility of friendliness, which was impossible or even non-existent to him before this, virtually non-existent and unperceivable. Now think about the implications of what I just said. Non-existent and unperceivable. Until he inadvertently encountered this situation with undeniable information. In other words, the kid was relatively normal, could not deny the fact that these kids were having fun, and they were not getting mauled or bitten by these dogs. Whenever we encounter information that conflicts what we believe to be true, that we find virtually undeniable, we go into a state of confusion until we can sort it out. So he realizes that other possibilities exist. Now what? What do I do? I want to be like the other kids. I want to be able to play with dogs. Okay, he makes up his mind in a sense, not to the extent like we talked about with the kind of conviction about what we talked about earlier, but he decides, let's say, I want to be able to play with dogs. Is he able to do it?
Probably not initially.
Not right away.
Yeah, right, now right away. He's going to have to go through a,
He rationalizes it.
well, no, he's going to have to go through a process, a step-by-step incremental process, just the same kind of step-by-step incremental process you're going to have to go through to instill those 5 fundamental truths about the nature of the market that cause you to think in probabilities. Anything can happen. Every moment is unique. I don't need to know what's going to happen next. I don't to make money. There's a random distribution between wins and losses and any given set of variables to define an edge.
I guess it's the same concept of starting off with 100 shares.
Yeah, right. Incremental, step-by-step process. How is this step-by-step process likely to occur? See, here's what's important here. He has a desire. He inadvertently let's say, acquired a desire that is in direct conflict with what he believes to be true about the nature of reality. Now, just because he now is able to perceive a possibility that otherwise didn't exist, does that mean that all his fear has been dissipated? And if his fear has not been dissipated, then what we have is a classic conflict between what he desires and what his other belief about the nature of dogs would argue as being true and real. Okay? We have a classic conflict between his desire and what his beliefs say is true and real. So he could say, I want to play with dogs, but when he encounters another dog the next time, he might find the closest he could get to one might be 10 or 15 feet. That would be, in a sense, a positive encounter because nothing happened. Right? In other words, what we have are two contradictory beliefs. One that has an enormous amount of energy. All dogs are dangerous. And another dogs can be friendly and playful. Okay? We have two contradictory beliefs. One has enough energy, enough positive energy, that allows him to perceive the existence of other dogs without running away. That's about it. It allows him to perceive the existence of friendly dogs without running away. That's as far as it goes. But the next time he encounters another dog, and nothing happens from a distance, it'll grow a little bit, and this one will come down a little bit. And the next one, this one will come down a little bit, and this one will grow a little bit. Come down, grow, come down, grow, until let's say they're about even.
They're gonna get bit by another dog.
Yeah, hopefully he won't encounter any other dangerous dogs or unfriendly dogs. But there will come a point at which these are relatively even, and at that point, once his desire, let's say, is 1 degree greater than this particular negative belief, it will allow him to touch a dog, to have a direct, in other words, instead of a distance experience, but have an actual direct experience with a dog, touch it, and if it turns out to be, a positive experience, what will happen is this belief, all the negative energy in this belief will basically collapse, dissipate, and this belief will go way up in positive energy, and he'll be able to interact with dogs. And at the same time, have the full range of distinctions about what dogs are all about, from positive to negative, from negative to positive. And at some point in his life, maybe he's an adult in his 40s or 50s or whatever, he might run into a situation where he sees some kid who's terrified of dogs, and in the way he'll describe that, he'll say, I remember when I used to be that way, but he'll say, I grew out of it. Isn't that typically what people say when they transcend a fear, a childhood fear? I grew out of it. In other words, he went through an inadvertent process, meaning he wasn't really conscious of what he was doing. He didn't really know that he was going through a process of collapsing one belief, one concept, and energizing another, more functional. Because in relationship to the nature of dogs and what's possible, was this particular concept, could we say that it was dysfunctional? Is this a dysfunctional concept or not?
Well, the process of getting to it after the fact is.
Well, no, is this a dysfunctional concept or not? You can see,
yes.
the reason what makes it dysfunctional is this right here.
Yes.
That's what makes it dysfunctional, okay?
Right.
See, we could say dogs can be dangerous, but what makes it dysfunctional is this word.
Right.
Which brings up another issue. It's like, well, what's the truth? You see, if our beliefs limit what we are aware of and what we can experience in relationship to what exists, then what's the truth? What is it? What's the truth?
Some dogs are dangerous.
No, I mean more philosophically, what's the truth?
How the external environment interacts with what you believe.
Well, close, yeah.
True.
What?
Whatever you believe to be true.
Well, yeah, everyone believes that what they believe is the truth, but how do we know what the truth is? There's a way of knowing. There's an easy way of knowing. There really is.
Anything can happen.
Whatever works. Whatever works. Right? Now think about this. If what I believe causes me to interpret, perceive, and interpret information in a way that's consistent with what I believe, if what I believe determines what I expect, if what I believe determines what I do, the decisions I make, and how I behave, in relationship to my desires, my goals, my needs, my wants, which cause me or literally force me to interact with all these external forces to fulfill my goals, my needs, and my wants and my desires, then the particular set of steps I take to fulfill this is going to be based on what I believe is true in any given set of circumstances or situations, right? So I interact with these forces based on what I believe is true. If I feel satisfied, then whatever I believed must have corresponded with the environmental conditions as they existed. And so whatever I believe must be true because it worked. If it didn't work, or the degree to which it didn't work, then you could say that my beliefs were to some degree dysfunctional in relationship to the environmental conditions and what was available from the environment. I didn't know the appropriate set of steps based on the environmental conditions, or what I wanted wasn't available, or wasn't available to the quantity or degree to which I believed it would be available. Does that make sense? In any case, what I believe will determine what I perceive. If I perceived it to be available and it wasn't, then it's not the environment's fault. You guys with me on this?
It's a vicious circle.
That's right, exactly. Because everything we do is based on what we believe, and therefore, and since we do it and we experience whatever we believe, we wouldn't be here in this moment right now. If you may not have thought of it this way, but you wouldn't be here at this seminar if your beliefs about the nature of trading were working. Would you? They might be working to some degree, but not be working to the degree to which you are satisfied with. Or like I said, you just wouldn't be sitting here. Now, this is the important concept that I wanted you to get out of this, however. Well, there are many, but right now I want you to really pay particular attention to the fact that he had a desire that was in conflict with what he believed to be true. What won out in terms of his ability to express himself? At least in the initial stages, until the energy started balancing out. What wins out? The belief. Whatever has the most energy. Put it that way. Whatever has the most energy is what wins. We will express ourselves in a way that's consistent with whatever has the most energy, regardless of what the conflict, in other words, regardless of what you may want. Meaning that it is possible to acquire a desire that is in conflict with what we believe to be true. And we may not even be aware of the belief that's in conflict with our desire. We may not even be aware of it. It may have been something we learned in our childhood. But what we're going to learn in a moment is that it doesn't matter when we learned it. If there's energy in it, it will have the potential to act on our perception and on our behavior, regardless of what our desire is.
And I just want to make sure I got that.
Okay.
What you're saying is, if my desire is strong enough, it can cause me to look at my belief or take some of the energy out of my belief.
Yeah, desire is the key.
Yeah.
The intensity of your desire. Your desire is strong enough. Remember I said if you make up your mind with conviction, you can move energy? I didn't say it that way earlier this morning. I said that you can neutralize the conflicts.
Right.
That's in essence what I was saying. If you make up your mind with such a strong degree of conviction, you can actually neutralize conflicting beliefs just by merely making up your mind. And in some cases that'll happen. It really will. There are things that you will look at in relationship to your sense of dissatisfaction and say, you know what, I get it now, and this is it. This is not who I am anymore. This is not who I am. And resolve that from this moment forward, this is who I am. And if it's strong enough, it'll be enough to move that negative energy out, or that energy period, and what I'm just going to call a dysfunctional belief. Dysfunctional only in the sense that from the environment's perspective, in relationship to what you want, it doesn't work. What we're going to be learning later on this afternoon is that you don't have to attach so much importance to what you learn to believe. Meaning that people have this sense that their beliefs are their identity. And you don't have to look at your beliefs as being so much a part of your identity, but simply something that might be useful in the moment. So for an example, this particular sweater was useful, I put it on. When it's no longer useful, I take it off. When it really becomes dysfunctional, I throw it away. And believe it or not, you can look at your beliefs the same way. You weren't born with any of them. You've inadvertently changed some of them throughout your life. All you're doing now is altering some of them based on your desire to fulfill certain desires and goals. That's all you're doing. And if you believe it's all right, the process will go a lot easier. If you don't believe it's all right, that's one of the first beliefs you're going to have to work on, is why it isn't all right to change a belief. Because there are people who really arduently believe, that it's not all right to change a belief. It's not all right. So therefore, that would be the first thing they'd have to work on, is making it all right. Is drawing the energy out of the belief that says it's not. And if this makes any sense, which it should, is that the stronger you believe that it is all right to just alter your beliefs when it suits your purposes, the faster it goes, and the easier the process is. Okay, where are we? What time is it?
20 to 12.
20 to 12? Oh, okay. I know what I got to do. Now, and this will finish us up just before lunch, too. We got the child, the circumstance in which the child desires to be like the other kids, and so he goes into, let's say, an active process of transformation, but doesn't really understand it in the way that I'm organizing it right now. What about the kid that, let's say, doesn't care about being like the other kids or cares about even playing with dogs? What happens to him? Now, again, I'm going to ask you to answer this question or try to answer it based on your own personal experiences. Try to put it within the context of your own personal experiences. You've got a situation. He has a negatively charged belief about the nature of the way dogs exist. He confronts, inadvertently is confronted with information that contradicts this belief, making it, in essence, not true. Meaning not true in the sense all dogs are not dangerous. The all is the critical active word here. But also at the same time has no desire to interact with dogs. Now, his experience allows him to now perceive the possibility of interacting with dogs on a friendly basis, but he has no desire to do so. So what we have in this person's mental environment is an active contradiction that will probably remain that way for his whole life. He will be able to perceive the possibility of interacting with dogs, but the way he'll rationalize his inability to do so, and I say his inability because what will determine his ability to interact with dogs? What has the most energy? That's right. What has the most energy? So he will rationalize his inability to interact with dogs with, I know they're not dangerous, but I don't want to touch them anyway.
Okay, done with the first part of backtesting for the day. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of the day later, or the rest of the year later. Just gonna take a break. Not gonna do the other part on stream. Like, I only stream in the morning. Let's review. Let's see if anything happened while I was backtesting. No alerts went off, so that's a sign. Let me keep that there real quick. Close all this out. Okay. Cool. One second. All right. Perfect. All right. So price still below the zone. Hasn't put in a new low, hasn't pushed down further, nothing's happened yet. What time is, I think it's 10:30. News is coming out, right? I exit out of it. There it is. Yeah, it's 10:30, 10:32, 9:30. Well, 10:30 and 2 o'clock. Here's JPY. Price is just pushing up, so nothing major there. Gold, nothing going on here either. I mean, price came back to the entry zone, so possibly another entry. I'm not interested in that. Nothing there either. This actually be pretty good. There's okay, so that's everything for me. I don't have anything else to go over. Just to double check that. yeah, that's pretty much it. So, appreciate you guys watching. Let me real quick check if there are any pair requests. No pair requests. So, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Sorry for the little error. I'm about to, jeez. Obviously, I need new equipment, right? So I need to get that. I need to write it down. I already have it written down. I'm about to check it off the list. Alright guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Appreciate you guys watching. Please go ahead, leave a like, and also subscribe if you want to keep up with future content and support the channel. I'll catch you all later.